I want to talk about things that have been getting me down lately, and I don't know, I was hoping you can give me some advice on how to get over it.
Welcome to your feel good video.
All right, let's do it. There's been a lot lately that's just kind of like been getting beat down, and one of the things for me is been about money.
Hmm.
That's been a big one, and there's been like a good $20,000 to $50,000 in bills that kind of happen all at once, and you're like,
Oh,
I don't know why we're even doing this life anymore.
right.
So
You mean people work retail?
so it's definitely been something that has been a bit of a struggle for me lately. So I don't know. That's what I wanted to.
So are you noticing, is it more feeling wise? Is it thoughts? Is it conversations? Is it like what's showing up?
So I
Lack of
think
wanting to do stuff? Like what happens?
motivation. I have no motivation.
Okay.
When all of those bills kind of pile up, I have no motivation to do anything. One would think that would give me more motivation to get more things like content out, or
All right.
do more things so I can afford it. But man, for me, it just makes me want to go within myself.
Yeah. And the way that we look at the mind too, right? We talk about how many times it kicks into like fight, flight, freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Freeze is an option.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the brain goes into. And so when you're looking at this bill of, like you're saying, $25,000, $50,000, I mean, your system goes, whoa.
Yeah.
And if you can't, and that's the weird thing too, like we can't fight a bill.
I mean, I
Right?
can try.
You can try.
I can run away.
And we can try, and that's the other side of it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fight, flight, freeze.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fight the bill. You can't run away from the bill. And so what does the system do? It goes, oh, well, how about I just do nothing for right now?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that happens. And so it is something that we have to take that freeze and turn it into the fight. And we have to find ways to move forward with that. But that's not, and I want to say that to like everyone, to you, to everyone, to recognize that that's not you wrong, you bad. That's your neurology.
Yeah.
And to be somebody who is exceptional is the person who says, no, I'm going to rise above that.
It's go ahead. I was just going to say, I think one of the things that I notice myself is how I speak to myself.
Mm.
And I know I certainly, through different emotions, I have different verbiage that comes out. And I'll say, when I'm angry, there's a lot of curse words that come out. When I'm sad, there's a lot of curse words that come out. When I'm happy, there's a lot of no.
I feel like there's a theme.
No, that's not true. But no, when I'm angry, there's a lot of curse words. But when I'm sad, it's a lot of silence. I don't say a lot. And when I'm happy, I become really stupid like and silly like. And so I've noticed that's something that I try to do to help myself is change understanding what it is that I say when I'm in those places.
Yeah.
And then trying to literally even just force myself to be either more the silly type, which would help me change my state. Am I in the right direction?
It really does. And it's very counterintuitive, right? Like when we're upset, the idea of doing something or saying something or being silly becomes silly in and of itself.
Yeah.
But movement moves emotion. So if we're upset, if we're angry, if we're sad, if we're dealing with something, lots of times we get small. And so, we've talked about in other videos and things about getting into that power pose, and that's one aspect of it. But being silly can make a big difference too. And watching something that's silly, like if you can't necessarily pull that out of you,
Yeah.
then try to grab something else.
Yeah.
Meaning watch a stupid cat video, watch a comedian, watch something along those lines, because it can help to bring that up. Set a time limit for it so you're not necessarily watching it all day long and being stuck in that thing where you just kind of, but like having that is really important. And setting up things, the discipline is a huge part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of having a routine in the morning that sets you up for success
Yeah.
can make a huge difference. Maybe you have It's so cold.
It is.
Doing good. This is how you stay
Yeah.
positive.
Why are we filming outdoors today?
It wasn't this
I don't-
cold earlier. So, having a routine first thing in the morning can be really important too, because two things. One, when we wake up first thing, it's good to do something immediate,
Okay.
because usually we don't argue a whole lot with ourselves at that time. We don't start making
Other than
excuses.
getting out of bed, I
Yeah,
argue
I
with
got
myself
that.
there.
But like, what I mean is, it's not the to-do list and all these other things. Lots of times some of our most creative moments can be that moment right when we wake up.
Mm,
And so I try not to ever waste that. So if I wake up
That's
and I'm
fair.
thinking about something, I get to the paper as quick as possible.
it's kind of the advice where they say like put a notebook beside your bed type
Oh
thing.
yeah. Oh yeah. The other thing that's good too is if you have that routine, even if you don't feel like it, you do it.
Okay.
So for an example, I've become relentless about going to the gym and exercising, right?
Yeah.
And that's not all, ego and vanity and that kind of stuff. It's because I want to live.
Yeah.
Like, as you're getting older, it's kind of like, oh, that's less about the mirror and more about the
The feeling.
keeping the, yeah.
And I mean, for me, it's a feeling. I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't mean
no,
to
you're
interrupt,
right.
but yeah,
You're
for
right.
me, it's the feeling that I get when I go to the gym, and
Yeah.
that's what I try to strive for.
And yet there are times when you don't feel like going.
Yeah.
I remember one time specifically, I'm getting ready to leave. It's raining outside. It's during the summer. My daughter's watching TV, and like there's nothing in me that wanted to go.
Yeah.
I wanted to go sit on the couch, eat some breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
watch a movie, something along those lines. And so I actually stood there in the doorway, and I looked at her and I told her exactly that. I said, "There's nothing in me that wants to go."
Yeah.
And I said, "That's every reason why I have to go right now."
That's, it's so interesting you say that, because I went on a little bit of a hiatus with the gym. By a little bit, I'm embarrassed to say it's a few months. But that hiatus made it even harder to come back to. And, when I'm waking up in the morning, or when I'm even wanting to go, even if it's in the middle of the day, I literally have convinced myself finally that that when I have the feeling, I should say, of like, I just don't want to go, I don't want to do this at all, that's when I know I have to go.
Yep.
And that's always been good, but it's weird how every day I'm like, I don't want to go.
Well,
I don't want to go.
and that's the thing I want people to get as well. It's this moment where that's not wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, there was literally times when I first started shifting and saying, okay, I got to get this healthy. I got to take care of myself and these kind of things, where I was sitting in the parking lot of the gym. I had my hands on the steering wheel and I'm like, just get out of the truck.
Yeah.
Just get out of the truck. Just get out just walk in, just lift one weight and then you can go home. Just get,
Yeah.
and this, if anybody else had seen me,
Yeah.
but that was what was happening.
I was in the
because-
car next to you doing the same thing. Get out of the damn car.
And there's other times where it's like, I can't wait to go, but look, why and what if, and I wish I could, and blah, blah, blah. The routine becomes go.
Yeah.
I've heard people, I was talking with a friend of mine, and he was talking about his friend that was saying I don't have motivation for anything, or he's just talking about how lazy he is, and he just, all these kind of things. And then he started talking to him about his dog.
Mm.
And so when it comes to the dog, first thing in the morning, he goes out for that walk. First thing in the morning, he lays out the food. First thing in the morning, he does this and he does this and he does this. And all of a sudden, here's this whole routine that he has that he didn't even realize. And lots of times we will create a routine for other people, but we won't necessarily do it for ourselves.
I'm really great at helping everyone else.
I
Terrible
mean,
at helping
kids,
myself.
life, team, all that other stuff. And then we forget about ourselves and we get stuck in that moment where like, okay.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. That's both of us are in the industry of helping people. And I have, that's how I ended up even finding you or meeting you in the first place, was because, I dabble in trying to understand the mind a little bit and try to understand how to help, somebody get over confidence issues or whatnot. But, and I'm pretty good at it, not nearly as good as you, but I'm decent at it. But then I had my own issues that brought me to you, because
So you're human? Sometimes too, when it comes to the positive affirmations or statements or things along those lines, having things ahead of time is really important. Because if you're in the moment trying to figure out, okay, let me say something positive about myself, It's a little tougher,
Yeah.
right? Especially if you're already in that state, right? That state is frustrated, that state is down, that state is sad or emotional or whatever it is, and it's the opposite of where you want to be.
Yeah.
So having that stuff ahead of time is good, and that's same thing where it can be part of your routine. If you wake up in the morning and maybe you have on the mirror certain things, right, that written down about yourself. Sometimes when I work with a client, I'll give them one of those erase markers and an eraser, and I'll say, look, I want you to go home and write a couple things on your mirror, and that way we can change them over time. But some truths about you.
Yeah.
Years ago, I worked with a lady, and for her, she's a paralegal. So basically, she does all the work, and the lawyers get paid. And so I asked her, I said, was there ever a time where you had to do a case and it was a slam dunk, right? Like there was videos, there was testimonies, there was confessions,
Tons of evidence. Yep.
everything. Like it was done, but yet the defense still had an argument against you. She said, "Yeah, all the time."
Yeah.
And I said, "Isn't it
I have
interesting?"
teenagers. That's the same thing.
Isn't it interesting how the evidence is contrary to the argument? And it's the evidence that wins in court. And so lots of times the argument to ourselves is, I can't do this, I'm no good, or I made a mistake, or this is wrong, or this is life, or all these arguments that we start to make. But if you pause for a moment and consider the evidence of your life, do I love my kids? Do I love my wife? Do I love my husband? Do I love my dog? Am I doing these things? Like whatever that stuff is for you, and making sure that it's something that there's the evidence of it. Even though it might be a hard time right now, I'm still trying to build a life. I'm still doing these things. I'm still trying to help people.
Yeah.
And so when we look at the evidence being contrary to the argument, sometimes it helps us to kind of pop out of that.
Yeah.
And none of these are a magic wand and boom, everything's perfect. Oh, I thought of one nice thing that I did. I'm all good now.
Yeah.
These are things that we're going to have to come back to over and over and over again, but at least you have resources to utilize.
Sometimes I think too, and this is just dependent upon the person when I say this, but sometimes thinking about positive things that are external, that aren't even around or about you, just thinking of something else that is positive, essentially, can help you bring back to the things that are about you as well. Because sometimes we get stuck in this negative spiral. I like to call it like falling down the rabbit hole of negativity. And I find that if I focus in on how to like claw my way up, sometimes that doesn't always work. So it's starting to look at even the external, like tell myself something good about that horse that's sitting over there, or tell me something that's good about, whatever.
Yeah.
And once you start to change your way of thinking, it can help you bring back some more positive about yourself.
Very true.
As well.
Very true.
These are just kind of things that I was dealing with some of these massive bills, and I'm thinking to myself, how do I get myself motivated to go do something? And the more I try to push myself to be motivated, the more I actually can think less. And it's so I tend to have a process more of saying, okay, well, I got to put myself in a better state first, and get myself prepared to be able to think a little bit better. And if I'm in a better place, I can have a more open mind to figure out what's next.
Yeah. And something too is who you surround yourself with makes a difference too.
We've all been told that so many times that you tend to forget it.
It's so stinking true. And that's one of the reasons for coaching, right? Like, and that's not, okay, here comes the plug for the show. But it's the truth.
Are you listening?
It's one of the reasons why we have a coach, right? Tiger Woods, it's probably a better golfer I can use now, but like, why does Tiger Woods have a coach? Because he can't see his own swing. And so in these moments where we are feeling down, in the moments we're feeling the struggle, yes, have the resources and tools to kind of boost yourself up so that you have that there. But it's also good to have somebody in your corner for you as well.
Yeah.
And if it's this program, or if it's connecting with the community, or if it's just calling up a friend that is positive, because that stuff is so critical.
Yeah.
And I've even talked with people too, where they're coming out of this really toxic environment, and they're thinking, okay, I don't have anybody I can talk to. Okay, I understand. Then go to YouTube.
Yeah.
And start finding some of these positive speakers and stuff. I mean, Tony Robbins is on $1 million a year retainer But
Jesus,
you
yeah.
can have him sit on your phone, and you can have him right in your living room and on your computer telling you incredible things about yourself and help to build you up as well. So we don't have to do it all alone. And in those moments when we feel like we don't have the resources, there are more resources around us than we think there are. And if you really get stuck, sometimes it's helping other people to get out of their stuff as well to help boost that out of you.
I mean, it's like our program that we have. We have kind of a group within the program of people that are trying to work through their stuff, and sometimes it's just, it's not even coaching, it's just being there for
Yeah.
someone, and being a listening ear. We talk about it sometimes, to clarify. In personal relationships, I try to say, like, clarify before you start telling me something you're upset about. Is this a thing that you are looking for a venting session?
Yeah.
Or is this something you're looking for solutions? That way I know what I'm supposed to do
Yep.
as well. And so it's like, even
Yep.
within our group, we want people to feel like, hey, maybe I'm just venting. And they want to vent so people can hear. And then sometimes you're looking for solution-based type
Yep.
things. And so I know, even for our online program of, the confidence equestrian and stuff, we're really just trying to help people build their confidence, but at the same time recognizing it's not just one set path that they have to be on. We want to try to help in every aspect, because just like I was saying about my bills, I'm human too, and I bet you are too, Nathan.
Yes, indeed. That's why I see the hypnotistic coach. I'm like, all right, let's go in the chair.
Yeah. Yeah, you were telling me a little bit about that before, how I was like, who fixes you? And you were telling me you do the kind of the same thing.
Oh yeah, you have to, because there's nobody arrives, right? Like there's no, and we're striving for the destination, but it's like nobody ever arrives there. It's a constant at work in progress. Like that should be the shirt,
Yeah.
right? Work
Yeah.
in progress.
And it's never done.
And it's never done.
Yeah.
And it's almost like going to the gym as well, right? Like you're going to go one time and lift one weight. Okay, great. I don't have to do this anymore for the rest of my life. No,
Yeah.
that's not really how that works. You have to, this continual process of achievement. And, some days we're really great about it and sometimes we're not, but keeping moving is one of the biggest parts of it.
It's true. Yeah. And that's why exercise is so good for the mind in and of itself.
Yeah.
People get like those runner's high, for example. I get runner's anger. But
I get the runner's high when I'm chasing an ice cream truck.
so we have different highs that we go after. But yeah, I mean, it's really great for clearing the mind, and it's always something that we try to encourage people is not just obviously sitting down trying to work through your issues is a part of it, but getting out there and being active is always a big deal.
And most of this stuff is very systemic as well. Like if somebody comes in and they say, or the horses, I'm afraid of the horses, or I have this fear, this
Mm-hmm.
thing, or flying, or if I'm stressing at work, or I'm having anxiety about this area, typically it's kind of all of them.
Yeah.
And it's interwove because there's a story, there's a reason, there's an excuse, there's an identity, there's something there that is this common thread within that subconscious, because that's that emotional behavioral part of us that is just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And the brain, it will apply strategies. It's almost like if you give, like when your kids were little, if you give them a hammer,
Yeah.
everything becomes a nail. Right? Right? Like,
Fair enough.
and so in our mind, if the strategy is I shut down, if the strategy is I run away, if the strategy is I fight, if the strategy is I pick a fight, if the strategy is I go out, if I stay home, like there's different things that the mind will do that will show up differently in life. But the chances are, if there is this place of anxiety or fear, it's probably looped into all this other stuff. Again, that's why I love the work I get to do,
Yeah.
working with that subconscious, because that's where the stuff gets in there.
Yeah.
It's like the cell phone, right? Like you have all these apps that you can see on the surface, but there's, millions of coded data running underneath of
It's
underneath
true,
of that
right?
stuff that we're not seeing.
Yeah.
And one of those things out of whack and the whole phone can start acting weird.
That's fair. It's interesting you say that, about kind of, if one of those things is out of whack, your whole cell phone goes. And that obviously is the analogy to the human mind, as well. It's literally, I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone who has all of these things going right for them, but the one thing that's going wrong is the thing that kind of throws them out of whack, if you will. And it's, from the external, from someone else, you're like, what do you even have to complain about?
Right.
Right. But in their mind,
Yeah, everything looks good on the surface, but
Right.
paddling under.
yeah, right. And so it's definitely something that you always, it's just kind of like you're talking about. You have to make sure everything is aligned correctly in order for you to be in a better place overall.
And the folks that do have those kind of situations where most everything looks good, or I shouldn't say looks good, is good,
Mm-hmm.
it's because they have strategies in those scenarios.
Yeah.
But in this area, that probably needs to be a little tweak or work with that. And so it's again, doesn't mean somebody's broken. Anybody ever comes in, I'm not like, oh, you're broken, or you're
Yeah.
this is no.
Yeah.
We're all functioning the very best that we have in that moment, in that time. And so there's a good intention. It's just, is there a better way? And as long as there's that willingness to work at it, that's one of the most important things.
I think that's actually a really great line that it's always good as a reminder. You're not broken.
Nope.
You've never been broken. You might be sidetracked in a
You might
direction.
feel like it.
You might feel like you're broken, but you're never actually broken. Well, buddy, I actually enjoyed this conversation quite a bit, and it was good. And you know, even though it's kind of what we talked about earlier, even though we're not specifically talking about my problems, how to overcome bills, when just having this conversation, I feel better.
And notice the difference too. It is not just this verbal vomiting over everything, right? It is okay to talk about, here's the problem, but we cannot wallow in that stuff because our
God,
brain
that's such
can't
great
move
advice.
past it.
Yes.
And so that's the difference in this conversation as well. And if that's something for you where either you're on the receiving end of that or the giving end of that, be very careful with it, because changing those words and approaching this thing as something that there's a solution towards, that this is something you're working past rather than here's the problem and there's no movement past it, that will shift everything.
Yeah.
And so positive or negative. So just be aware.
Yeah. Well, buddy, I really appreciate that. And I hope honestly, those who are watching or listening in, maybe they get something from this as well. Because we thought this would just be a good conversation piece, you know, because I was going through it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And hopefully what people can take from this, and what anyone can take from this, is that there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And recognizing some of the things and the verbiage that you might use, and the recognize some of the things that you do that put you in this negative state, or some of the things you do that put you in a positive state, how to be able to change that.
And I'm actually going to teach on a video coming up. And so one of the things, it's a way of working through issues and problems. And so, you know, we'll put some links and we'll get connected for that. But
Yeah.
to begin with, if you can consider whatever the issue is, what's one thing that I can do to make this even just a little bit better? It might not fix it. Meaning, if the problem is world hunger, I'm not going to fix that
Yeah.
today. Right? Like, I can try,
You can try.
but if that's overwhelming me, if that's the big issue, then okay,
How can you feed one person?
how can I feed one person? How can I make even myself feel a little bit better right now? What could I take a deep breath? Could I go for a walk? Could I listen to something? Could I do whatever? And it doesn't mean that it solves the problem. It doesn't fix everything, but at least it gives us momentum. It gives us one little step ahead.
I like that, one
And
step
so,
forward.
Just one thing to make this a little bit better right now.
Well, as always, Nathan, it's always great to have a conversation with you. And those, you know, if you're listening and you're struggling with, you know, issues yourself, whether it be, you know, things that we're doing together, from confident equestrian to just, you know, overcoming bills. It's always something that both Nathan and I work on. Nathan is going to be the man to call if you're having these overcoming bills, having these confidence issues when it comes to just sheer, you know, raw emotions. Nathan is your guy to go to. And I don't know what I'm good at, but no, but we have those online programs too. If anybody's ever interested, we're not here to try to just sell you on the program, but we are wanting you to visit if you're if that's of interest to you, because we're here to listen. We're here to be a part of, your building blocks, your steps forward. We can help you, guide you in the right direction.
And you're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone, and you're not broken. But we wanted to thank you for listening and or watching, and we'll see you on the next one.